Good morning. Welcome to our H-2A oriented program here this morning. We really appreciate folks taking the opportunity to sign up and to express your interest in this program. My name is John Shoup, and I'm an attorney and director for the Indiana Agricultural Law Foundation, which was created by Indiana Farm Bureau. Part of what I wanted to communicate this morning is to kind of make a formal announcement and communicate the relationship that Indiana Farm Bureau has established with Great Lakes Ag Labor Services. Great Lakes was created by Michigan Farm Bureau, and we feel really good about this relationship. They have an excellent track record in helping agricultural folks with employment issues and specifically H-2A issues. And it just made sense to us to establish this relationship rather than trying to reinvent the wheel, to partner with Great Lakes Ag. And we're certainly hopeful that Indiana Farm Bureau members will benefit from this relationship as well. We've also, one of the speakers today is Angela Adams, an attorney here in the Indianapolis area. And we've taken a lot of the work that Great Lakes and Varnum Law Firm in Michigan has done and kind of Indianaized it. And you'll have an opportunity, again, as Farm Bureau members, to benefit from that relationship too. And we look forward to hearing from Angela a little bit later in the program. Before I turn it over to Sarah Black, I've just a couple housekeeping notes. We ask as attendees that you please keep your mute on. I think we've all been on enough Zoom calls now that it certainly is beneficial for the rest of the attendees if we all keep our mute button on. My assistant, Maria Spellman, is going to be sending out probably as we speak, an agenda, a PowerPoint presentation that will show up in your chat box here on Zoom. There'll be some additional information communicated throughout the program in that fashion. Last thing, if you have questions, we ask that you use the chat feature. We'll be able to see those and we'll try to get to those questions as efficiently as possible. And we certainly encourage you to ask questions that you think are relevant to your operation. So with that, again, we really appreciate you being a part of the program. It's my pleasure to turn the program over to Sarah Black. Sarah is the General Manager for Great Lakes Ag Labor Services. Sarah, thank you for being here today. The floor is yours.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Wonderful welcome and good morning, everyone. We're happy to be with you today. My name is Sarah Black, and I am the General Manager for Great Lakes Ag Labor Services here out of Michigan, an affiliate company of Michigan Farm Bureau. Wanted to just briefly share with you kind of what we plan to cover today on the webinar. There will be opportunities, as John mentioned, for questions along the way. And if we don't get to your questions today, there'll be lots of contact information where you can call us or email us or reach out to us, and we'd love to follow up. So today we plan to cover with you just a brief overview of the H-2A process for maybe those of you that are learning about this for the first time or don't understand it with a lot of detail, and a little bit about the different application models that go along with that. We're going to just provide a brief overview for you of our services that we do and how our services are quite a bit different than other H-2A providers in the way that we provide personal service at the farm level and probably a little bit more involved service level with respect to the workers when they arrive, with onboarding and training right at your farm in person. We'll cover the filing process a little bit, give you some perspective from an employer, and also hear from one of our Michigan farmers who is a GLAUS client and has been for several years. And she's going to share with you a little bit her perspective the first year that she did it and what they've learned along the way. So kind of as an opportunity to hear from a peer. And then lastly, we're going to spend some time with Varnum and Adams Law regarding the compliance guide and legal assistance portion of our services that, again, is very unique and very different than other H-2A suppliers. So with that, let me just give a brief overview of who we are and where we came from, because I think this is really a fun and very relevant piece to Great Lakes Ag that's unique from anybody else in the country. We are an affiliate company of Michigan Farm Bureau, and we were started by Michigan Farm Bureau. And what happened was we had a lot of our members telling us that we are not able to find the labor like we used to. This has become a huge problem. And if we can't solve this labor problem, we'll no longer be in business. So they actually directed us to try to go this route. And our board said, you know, we don't know anything about being an H-2A agent, but we'll figure it out and we'll learn. So the member task force directed Farm Bureau to do it. We put together a staff team that found the resources and figured out how to do it. And in our first year was just a pilot year, and it was really for us to learn everything possible that we could learn about H-2A. And so here in 2020 now, we've completed our 5th full year of providing H-2A services to farmer members here in Michigan. One thing that is a little unique about us, maybe from other H-2A models you may have heard of, is that we're an agency. We work as an agent with the farmer. We are not a labor contractor. So that gives you full control over your labor once they arrive on your farm and all of the aspects that go along with that. We are currently the largest H-2A agent in Michigan. And in this past year that we're just finishing, we worked with 55 farms, actually 58 farms. We had a pretty devastating freeze early on in the season that took out some crops on a couple of our clients' farms. So they didn't have a crop to harvest this year, but we would have had 58. We filed 86 applications for H-2A workers and brought in 1,800 workers. So that just gives you a little flavor that we figured out how to do it and know how to do it well. We're very much connected across the country, as John indicated, not only in the Farm Bureau family, as we like to call it, but we're active members of the National Council of Ag Employers. And so we're very well connected with what's happening on the labor law front, as well as connected to the other H-2A providers across the country. We do have a very close partnership with Varnum Law, and that's one of our strengths, and we highly value that partnership. They walk with us hand in hand with new employers through the process to make sure that all the T's are crossed, all the I's are added, and that we're doing things correctly. And that is one of the things that I like to tell prospective farmers that we talk with is, you know, our goal is to make you successful. We weren't started as a revenue generating affiliate company. We weren't started to find a new revenue stream for the Farm Bureau. We were started to serve the farmer, and we were started and set up in a way that our goal is to make you successful. So we're going to do everything that we can do to wrap our arms around you, if you will, to make sure that you're successful. And so that close partnership with Varnum is key to that and ensuring that we can help you in your success. We also have built a custom database, which you may say that sounds weird, but it's really very, very valuable from an H-2A service standpoint for you, in that we're able to track all of the workers that we have a partnership with our recruiter. We know where those workers are at. We're able to customize all of the documents for you when the workers arrive. So the forms are all pre-printed with the workers' names and the checks are ready. And we do a lot of stuff on that end that other suppliers won't do because we have built that custom database, and it really allows us to provide that next level of service. And then lastly, I think another strength is that the majority of our staff are bilingual. So when you think about the majority of our workers today come from Spanish-speaking countries, and the ability to have that communication one-on-one, for there not to be a language barrier, for us to be able to arrive at your farm and help you with training and help you with that worker arrival and be able to communicate in their language is very much a strength. So that's kind of a big picture overview of who we are and what we do. And this is our staff team. You can see we're not a huge team. We're pretty lean. We've figured out how to do it. Again, our goal is not to make a pile of money. It's to help you guys be successful and to provide you with a service that helps your farm stay in business. So we've got a great team here assembled with a lot of people with expertise, and they're ready and willing to work with our friends in Indiana. So with that, let me turn the presentation over to Misty DeBoer. Misty is our Assistant Operations Manager, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about the H-2A program. Misty?
Good morning, everyone. I know everybody on this call might have varying degrees of their understanding of the H-2A program. It's something very cumbersome. It can be very heavy. So if you have just basic knowledge, that's okay. But I wanted to give you a broad overview of what exactly the H-2A program is. So the H-2A program is a temporary agricultural program that allows agricultural employers with a shortage of domestic labor to bring foreign workers to the U.S. to perform agricultural job tasks. This federal program has been around since 1986, but we've seen a really big spike over the last decade with its use. Currently, there are 84 countries that are approved where growers can invite workers from. Great Lakes Ag principally works with Mexico due to the border proximity, but we have also worked with countries such as Colombia, Jamaica, Guatemala, and South Africa. So as you talk through your labor needs, we're able to, accommodate what is needed. And then in 2019, the Department of State issued over 200,000 H-2A visas. There's a figure there that you can see from the years 2016 to 2020, how many H-2A applications have been filed by the different quarters and the percentage of increase. So you can see as the years have gone on from 2016 to 2020, there's been a pretty big spike in the use of the program. So H-2A is a temporary seasonal workforce. Generally, 10 months or less is what the workers would come up to the farm for. The job tasks must be agricultural in nature. So we've done contracts that incorporate harvesting tasks, planting tasks, tractor operation, and we've even done like supervisor contracts as well. As I mentioned, is a pretty complex processing, and later on we'll go over kind of what that exactly looks like. H-2A is unique in that it's an uncapped program. So if you are familiar with H-2B, for example, that is capped. But for H-2A, we're allowed to bring in as many guest workers as needed that have been approved by Department of Labor and for those visas. And then the biggest thing is that this is a supplemental program. It is not a replacement program for domestic workers, but obviously there is a chronic shortage in the labor need. And so this is to supplement the domestic workforce that we have available here in the US. And Sarah, you can go ahead to this. Okay. And then I wanted to go over the different types of application models that many of you would fall under if you decide to utilize H-2A. So principally, we worked with fixed site and joint employer, and they're very similar. So with the fixed site model, the grower maintains the control of their workforce. That means that the employer would be responsible for paying for the filing fees throughout the application process, agency fees, per worker fees, and then of course payroll. When the workers are actually on the farm, you would have all of the management control, of course, so that's issuing discipline and anything that would go with your normal operations, right? And a joint employer is the same exact model essentially. That's when two growers file an application together. They share the fixed site fees listed above on that slide under the fixed site employer, and then each grower would share the control of the workforce and they share the liability there. We see this model work really well when it's usually like a father-son type operation or with neighboring farms. We've seen them utilize that model. And then the last one I wanted to talk about that some of you might be familiar with is a farm labor contractor. So Sarah had already distinguished that Great Lakes Ag is not a farm labor contractor. We're a full filing agency. A farm labor contractor is somebody that the employer or the grower would contract with for all of the employment services. So the farm labor contractor controls the workforce. They are responsible for paying the payroll, all of the filing fees, all of that stuff. And what they end up doing is billing the employer usually a percentage of the payroll amount and then a service fee on top of that. So those are what we see most coming through the H-2A program. And then I would like to pass this on to Laura Harrigers. She is a colleague of mine. She's a labor program coordinator, and she'll go in detail about the filing process with H-2A.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Laura. I am a farmer myself. My husband and I have apples, cherries, and asparagus. And then I also work for Great Lakes Ag as a labor program coordinator. So I see both sides of the story when we work with you. As a client, you guys would be assigned a labor program coordinator, and then I would do directly and start drafting your H-2A contract. And then we would work through all of the details that go onto the contract and go and file it through 3 separate government agencies, and then kind of report back to you to make sure that everything's on time, the workers will arrive on time. The first step would be to meet with you guys and discuss what's going to be on the contract. So this is the contract between you and the H-2A employees that we bring up. So you have to decide how many visas you want on the H-2A contract, how many guys you want to cross to work on your farm for the year. We also talk about the contract start date and the contract end date. And then also you have to list job that you want the workers to complete while your farm. So we have, it seems very intimidating, but we have a big long list of everything because we've been doing this for 5 years. So if you have apples, for example, we have already drafts of everything that you would need the workers to do on a farm, and then we would just make sure that that fits directly with your farm, do the processes on your farm. So we would work through that. If there's any housing rules that you want the workers to follow, any work rules, and then food safety rules. So all of that information gets put onto your H-2A contract. We discuss at length about it to make sure that you guys understand and feel comfortable with everything written. And then when that's all completed, we will start filing that with the government agencies. So the first step is to file with the state workforce agency. The earliest we can do that is the 5-day mark. So we cannot file earlier than that. And then the latest we can file is 60 days prior to your contract start date. So there's a bit of a time frame that we have to make sure that we stick to that time and get all of your information in on time. And then after the state approves it, then we file with Department of Labor. And they have a pretty long process to be certified by Department of Labor. So we will work through all of that information with you guys. And then you also will need to invite back all of your domestic workers who had finished the season with you the year prior. So all information we have drafts listed already for invite letters to your domestic workers. And it's, again, a long process, but we feel like experts at this point. After Department of Labor accepts, then we file with United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. And then after they accept your contract, then we can send your H-2A workers to the American consulate in Monterrey, Mexico. I'm just using Mexico as an example because the majority of our workers come from there. So we will send the guys to Mexico. They'll be to get their work visa, and then we bring them, we coordinate with a transportation company, and then they come up and will arrive directly to your farm. So it is a long process. For the worker side, you can give us specific names of people in Mexico that you want to bring up, and we will work with a recruiter to bring those specific people to your farm. Or if you just say, hey, I just need 15 people that have picked apples before in the past, then we will just find 15 people that need of your farm. So it's up to you guys how you want to go about that for the worker side. And then if you like them, you can invite them back for the following year so that you're able to train and have the same team come back year after year. And we have quite a few farms that do that. And Kim Croft will speak later. But the idea is that you find guys that you enjoy, that understand your farm, and that you want to bring back year after year. With that, I will hand it off to Hio.
Thank you, Laura. Hello, my name is Eligio Larga, and I am the sales and field representative for Great Lakes Ag Labor Services. Usually, I am the first point of contact for growers interested in the H-2A program. So a big part of my job is education. And one of my responsibilities is to meet with our prospect clients and provide information about the H-2A program, its requirements, our services, and the cost of the program. So on the topic that I'm going to talk to you about today, it's about our services. So you heard Sarah and Misty and Laura talk about process, and our services are pretty much tied to these processes for the most part. I also would like to mention that a lot of these services that we provide are unique to Great Lakes Ag Labor Services, and that there are not a lot of H-2A providers who offer the services that we provide. And some of these services are also customized to each farm. So let me start with the first one. So the management review. So the management review is conducted by a third party, and for this process, we use the services of Varnum Law firm. And then once the management review is done, if the grower decides that they want to move forward and using the H-2A program makes sense for them, then we move forward into an agreement between the grower and Great Lakes Ag Labor Services. Once we enter into an agreement with the client and sign a contract, we make sure to have enough meetings, and as much discussion as necessary with our clients so that they understand the H-2A program and the requirements that come with it, so they can have a successful season. So this is very important because this program can be cumbersome, and it can be complex, and as you probably heard Laura, it can be it can be a lengthy process. So we want to make sure that when the growers decide to use the H-2A program, they fully understand what they're getting into it. So also, we help with recruitment for the workers, and for recruitment, we use different organizations for the recruiting of the workers. Once we have identified what type of farm and what type of jobs the workers will be doing, we then send that information to the recruiting company so that they can recruit the right people according to your needs. And unless you are providing names like Laura mentioned, then if you're not providing names of people you already know, then they will try to find people to match those people with the needs of your farm. So we also help with the domestic recruitment. On the H-2A program, there's this rule about domestic workers, that says that as an H-2A employer, you are required to give preference to domestic workers when these workers apply for the same job that you are offering to your H-2A workers. So when a domestic worker applies for the job, we as Great Lakes Ag take to the task to provide a job interview and to screen these domestic applicants to make sure that they qualify for the job and that they meet the necessary experience and requirements to work in your farm. So we need to make sure that recruitment practices are the same for foreign workers and for domestic workers. That's why we decided to do also, the domestic recruitment as part of our services to make sure that recruitment is uniform and is consistent across the board for everybody. We also coordinate with workers' transportation to your farm. So when the workers come from Mexico, we usually use a chartered company that brings the workers from the consulate to your farm, or a nearby town, so depending where the farm is. So but when the workers come from a different country, then we, along with the recruiting company, we coordinate the inbound and the outbound transportation, and which has to be done with flights. So another service that we offer, it's an onboarding process. Sarah mentioned this. When the workers arrive at the farm, they are required to complete and sign several documents, just like any other employer you would hire, any other employee, I'm sorry, that you would hire, plus additional documentation required by the H-2A program. So as part of our services, we provide these onboarding service that you would probably hear as a training orientation. So this service consists of, we are present at the farm. to provide this service. So we will be there. So we provide assistance with filing these documents, such as I-9s, the W-4s, the H-2A contract, and other documents that are required. So we explain to the workers how to fill these documents and to make sure that the documents are filled properly. So we also provide other trainings, like worker protection standard. See, farms that use pesticides are required to provide this training to the workers. We also provide the right to know law, which is overseen by OSHA. As an employer, if you have chemicals in the workplace, you have to train your workers on this area. We provide training on food safety when it's needed. If you're covered under FISMA, the workers need to know the rules about hand washing and other requirements under the FISMA rule. We talk to them about worker safety, to prevent accidents and what to do in case of an incident, and other areas, like general rules and responsibilities and benefits of the workers. So we also offer supervisor trainings, in topics like management, the H-2A program rules, and other things. We also provide worker reimbursement when they arrive to the farm for their visa fees and travel expenses. We make farm visits, schedule farm visits, to check and see, making sure everything's fine. We provide translation services, whether it's written, whether it's on the farm, or whether it's over the phone. We provide management materials like discipline booklets. Laura mentioned that you will be assigned a labor coordinator, and let me tell you what, our staff, our labor coordinators are amazing. These guys are available almost 24/7. No kidding. They will answer the phone. They will answer your texts, your emails, over the weekends. I mean, you name it. And not only that, our staff is in constant training to keep updating on the new H-2A labor regulations and other aspects, like recently the COVID-19 situation, aspects that require our clients to stay informed. So when a labor coordinator, it calls on sick or is on vacation, we will make sure that somebody, a cross-trained staff team is going to be there, so there's no lapse in service. So I could go on and on, but I hope you get the picture, of a lot of the services that we provide, that we are going to be there, from the beginning, when we start the whole process until your workers go back home. So it's not like we're just gonna file and okay, here are your workers and see you next season. No, we'll be there, the whole time when you need us, especially at the beginning, because the first year could be the hardest, year. So for the purpose of keeping this meeting on schedule, so I'm going to stop here, and I also would like to introduce our next presenter. So she's one of our clients. Kim and her husband, Chris, live in Greenville, Michigan. They own and operate their orchard. Heart Farm LLC is an apple farm that specializes in multiple apple varieties. They just finished their 4th year working with Great Lakes Ag, and they utilize domestic and H-2A labor. So, and we have a really great experience with them as a client. So, King Croft, welcome, and you can take it off now.
Thank you. Good morning. So Chris and I have about 140 acres. We grow about 6 different varieties, and we are a high density orchard, which means more trees per acre. We've been using Great Lakes Ag for about 4 years now. And we are what we file under is the fixed site. So that means, we control the people. And we chose Great Lakes Ag because domestic help was getting harder and harder to find. So we wanted that peace of mind of knowing that we had someone, behind us that would take care of us and walk us through. We also like the fact that we could build a relationship with our H-2A workers, training them the way we want things done and are used to doing in our orchard. And we had the capability of inviting back who we wanted to invite back. We've done that. We've had guys that have been with us for all 4 years. We've had very little turnaround on guys. I think maybe this year we might have 3 new guys. The first year is a lot of work. It can be intimidating. We found the hardest thing was making up all the tasks. So all your job descriptions, that took Chris and I a very long time to do, but we wanted to make sure that we had all of our bases covered. So if there was a little bit of downtime, we had, you know, any little job we could think of, we made sure we had a description for. The self audit it's a little intimidating, but you can get through it. It's, you know, they walk you through it. It's really a lot of things you're already doing are in the self audit. And some things are just little things that, oh yeah, I could improve on that, you know. The contract just takes a little bit of time going through, looking it over, making sure you've covered everything that you want to cover. It does get easier. You don't go at it alone. That's the nice thing about Great Lakes Ag is, you know, you're not alone. You have your designated coordinator. They're there. It is true. We've had multiple texts in the middle of the night when our guys are trying to arrive to the farm. The buses, you know, they tell us exactly where the buses are located, approximately how much longer before they're at our farm. We've had Sunday morning texts if there was a little problem that we could work through. It does get easier, and nice thing is every year you're learning something different. So if you want to tweak something on your contract, you know, you keep that in the back of your mind, make a note of it, get with your coordinator. Yeah, you know, I'd like to add this verbiage in next year or something. You know, it's just, that's what's so nice about working with them is the flexibility in the contracts. Thinking back, how many people we usually bring in between 24 and 28 people. Early April, we bring in about 8 people. They come in, they handle and help us with our pruning, spring planting, and continue pruning all summer long. Then we do have a crew that comes in at the end of August. That's the remainder of our crew, and they stay until we're done with harvest. We base our amount of people that we ask for by how the crop looks in the springtime. We can usually judge by June, excuse me, by June when we can, you know, how many people we can invite in. And we set our end date for our contract usually a week out from when we can determine when harvest would be over with. So we usually finish harvest the end of October, first week of October. So we usually put it out 1 week to compensate for any weather that we might have come in. Let's see, I'm using my notes, so sorry about the noise. The orientation through Great Lakes is super easy, especially when we were allowed to have them come in. It just makes things run so much smoother. I don't know, I'm the only one that takes care of all the orientation. So for me, it took a lot of time to print out the contracts, to get it all up to the farm, to get all the guys together and talk about everything, fill it all out all by myself. This way you have people come in, you know, a couple people come in from Great Lakes Ag, they come in and we're through in a couple hours. The videos are what take the longest. We do this year with COVID, we didn't had the chance to have anyone come in through Great Lakes Ag. So they sent us a thumb drive. We just got all the guys together, popped in the thumb drive, went over everything, signed the paperwork. It still was way faster. The pre-filled paperwork is fantastic. And we also use the Varnum compliance. I was just on yesterday to have a question answered, found it in all the compliance paperwork they have. It's very easy to use. They have it very organized, and templates are great that they have. They have a ton of templates that they offer, and then you just tailor it to how your farm works. So I think that's about all I've got.
Thank you, Kim. Appreciate that very much. I think for the next part of the program here, we're going to switch over to Varnum. And I think Kim's actually going to take control of the screen. So I will stop and she's going to show you the compliance guide. So Kim, take it away.
Thank you. I'm trying to find the right screen here. So here is the compliance guide sign up. We have this now with our new partnership with Indiana. You can access and subscribe online. So our partnership with Michigan Farm Bureau predates Great Lakes Ag Labor Services, and we had gotten together to create this employment guide. And my Zoom bar is covering my, there we go. We'll do it this way. I will get there. So what we have done with Michigan Farm Bureau is we created this employment compliance guide. And what it does is it captures all of the compliance stuff. So it used to be that everything that you heard in this Zoom presentation before now, I used to present. And it is so great that we have so much compliance workers out there that give you the basics of here's what the law is, here's what the process is. And that's what we wanted to create on this guide, because we just wanted something user-friendly, accessible. And so this is a subscription service, but it's not just about H-2A. It is about everything that you will need as an agricultural employer. And so we have now, with this extended partnership, we have the breakdown between Indiana and Michigan. And so this is going to be specific to Indiana. Much of what happens in ag employment law is federal law. And so a lot of what Angela and I deal with is federal law, but there are a few little tweaks. And so Angela went through our guide that was created for Michigan and added on the Indiana aspects of it. So for the subscription that you get, you have access to this guide. Kim did a nice job of promoting the templates that we have. We also have FAQs. So within each topic, you'll see an overview, which is a bulleted pointed guide through the specific topic. We also will have resources that will take you to outside links, government links, or to our templates. And then we'll have a whole bunch of FAQs. And what those are about is what we're asked every year. So we're either asked throughout the season, or we have seminars in the off season where we sit down and develop what we're going to talk about based on the prior year experiences, and then the questions that have come in throughout the year. And so each year these are extended and we get more questions in there. So a lot of times you'll have your exact question answered within our FAQs. And I wanted to just kind of break down a little bit for you that this is the general H-2A and H-2B labor section. If you become a Great Lakes Ag member, here's their section, and it has all of their documents uploaded within it. So there was a lot of emails going back and forth with customers of Great Lakes Ag trying to manage the H-2A process, and we wanted one place to house all of that. So everyone was on the same page. When an update happened, you didn't have to try to figure out which document it was. And I think that this year really did highlight the need for this online, constantly updated service, because we had COVID. Everybody experienced COVID, and all that Michigan got hit harder with it than Indiana as far as regulations. And so there's a lot of urgency orders that were issued, and a COVID preparedness response plan that needed to be implemented. We were on the cutting edge of that, and it's because we want to be on the cutting edge, but also because we know that our customers need it. You were out there, essential services throughout. We needed to give you the tools to be able to comply. We had the state actually looking at some of what we had created for their plans, because they were under the gun too, trying to get things created. They still had to create their own thing because they wanted to be separate and apart from a private law firm. But what we found with some of the investigators that came out, if they saw the preparedness and response plan that had been customized by our clients and subscribers, that checked the box for them. It was far more user-friendly than the one that they had developed. And so we really pride ourselves on getting you the tools you need as quickly as we can and in a user-friendly way. So there's not just a bunch of overlap and sorting through a bunch of things that really just don't matter. So that's how we try to focus our activities. But even with beyond the Michigan orders, we have all the resources, again, federal resources, the CDC, the federal leave acts that guide the sick pay provisions. And we also do things bilingual. So this is, again, one of the great things about our partnership with Great Lakes Ag is they're doing a lot of the translations for us now to make sure that they're in a language that would be familiar to the workers, which is so much different than if you send it off to a formal translation service. So just one more thing I want to highlight, and then I'm going to pass it over to Angela to talk about her involvement. So one of the things that we often, in the early days when I started this guide and we were doing a lot of presentations, you may remember the Obama administration and the increased enforcement with Department of Labor. So we really focused in on the payroll issues of child labor, which kicked it all off when they had that story about blueberries in Halloween time that year, and then overtime requirements. And so again, this just kind of shows you that it's an outline format, talks about the exemptions, talks about how you get to the agricultural activities and how you decide that. So if you are a packer, for instance, and you have other people's product, this will explain to you that that falls within secondary agricultural activities. In order to remain within the exemption, you have to do all your own product. As soon as you start processing or packing other people's product, that pops you out of the agricultural exemption and you're subject to overtime. There are some ways to manage it and limit those by week, by line, by worker. But this is the kind of thing that will give you the starting point on the outline, FAQs, and the fact sheets that are referenced from Department of Labor will get you the rest of the way. So with that, I want to hand it over to Angela and talk about her Indiana experience.
Thank you, Kim. Hi, everybody. First of all, I just wanted to say how excited I am about this partnership because I've known how great GLALS is, but I am really impressed with this presentation. I just have to say, you guys are amazing. And I am so excited for Indiana to become a partner. I can't tell you how many times, and you've heard it too, I'm sure, our clients call and say, I just can't find the workers that we need to fill these positions. There's been a labor shortage for so long, and really excited that you all have embraced this and learned and grown with the H-2A program. So this will be really great. As Kim said, what we were tasked with doing, and I've been working with Indiana Farm Bureau for a while and the Agricultural Law Foundation, we previously had a guide with the Agricultural Law Foundation. And now I think that we took our guide, which was Indiana specific, and with Varnum's guide, which is much more robust, much more comprehensive, and we've kind of merged that together to create this very, very good and very thorough guide. And as Kim said, not just for immigration and H-2A. You'll see here on the side, the overview of the guide, most of these sections are labor law related or compliance related. Very few of these sections are specific to immigration. So while we're really, trying to encourage the H-2A program and GLALS has been great on the H-2A, this guide is so much more than that. So I would encourage you to just kind of see the, look on the side here, see what the different resources that it offers. And so much of that is there for you at your fingertips if you do subscribe. We have taken the Michigan specific stuff and really tailored it to Indiana to make sure, and Michigan in some ways, like Kim said, especially with COVID, we found that Michigan was much more ahead of the curve. And Indiana, we were kind of lacking in terms of, which could be good and bad. We have much less regulation in terms of the COVID resources. So in that way, Michigan can be a guide for Indiana. Also looking at some of these other sections that are available to you, I can't tell you how many times we work with folks on I-9 compliance. And you have a section here on employment eligibility verification for I-9. So that's a great resource for you there. As Kim mentioned, mostly federal law, and immigration is mostly federal law, but we do have a lot of specific sections that are Indiana related. And I will also underscore that as we went through this guide and made our modifications for Indiana, we discovered that it was in fact very user-friendly. So I think that's a big plus. Kim and I will be here for you, much like GLALS is there for you on the H-2A program. We are here for you. As part of a subscription, I know Kim's going to go over this. If you decide to subscribe, we are part of that subscription. And if you can't find the answer, you pick up the guide or you look in the guide and you can't find what you're looking for. Kim's much more familiar with it than I am, but I promise you that I will become more familiar with it, and we will be here for you to answer questions. If we think that you have a question that warrants a more in-depth discussion and really would be, value of attorney-client privilege, then we will suggest that there would be additional follow-up. But as far as simple questions for the guide, we look forward to having that relationship with you on an as-needed basis. So again, I'm Angela Adams. I have a practice here in Indiana. We do immigration law, but we're here for you with regard to working with Indiana Agricultural Law Foundation and Indiana Farm Bureau, and look forward to the partnership with GLALS and Varnum as well.
I'll just jump back in there with what Angela was talking about. So for your $600 annual subscription, what you get is full access to the guide for the entire year, all of the resources that are available that we've reviewed. We also do an off-season seminar. We used to do those live, probably in COVID years, we're going to do them like this. But what we do with those seminars is we specifically walk through the guide to help you become more familiar. So we go over the hot topics that have happened, the questions that we've gotten over the last year, and really kind of help you know where you can find the resources that relate to that. And with regard to the contact and the questions, we do offer that. If we get quick calls that you just can't find the right section, you need a template for something. But here's the difference, and here's where I think the partnership really pays off, but sometimes is misunderstood. If we are helping you with compliance, we are not in an attorney-client relationship. We are just pointing out our compliance information as part of our subscription package. But when you start talking to us about your specific facts with your specific employee and a specific investigation that may need to happen or a dispute that you're having, you want an attorney-client privilege. That means you need to retain us. And that's a separate charge. And I'm sorry about that, but that's how it needs to work in order to protect you. And most of the time, what will happen is I'll get the call and people will just jump right in, and I'll get to the end and I'll listen and I'll say, okay, well, here's the places on the guide if you want to try to understand the potential issues that may come, the claims that you might have. We even have severance agreements in there that you can use those templates if you want to try to handle it yourself. But if what you're asking for is for me to help you, guide you through that, even potentially take some interviews, process through, communicate with the other attorney, that's when you're engaging us. And so then I'll say, okay, these are our hourly rates. This is what I anticipate for it to take to resolve this. These are the places it could go. I think it's a relatively small claim, or I think, ooh, this one, they may have potential claims that may go across your workforce. So maybe you want to think about this a little bit more about retaining us. And so I always want to give clients and subscribers before their clients the options on what to do. And I never do a very good job of introducing myself. I've been in agricultural labor law for 25 years, really kind of 30 years, because my family farm got sued while I was working there. And then all the way through undergrad and law school, I helped on that litigation. So I know this stuff inside and out. And I've been with so many different clients over the years in assessing whether they want to fight, they want to dig in and fight, or if it's something that they want to, nobody wants to settle because you always feel right about your position. But I talk through the economic issues related to that and help you decide what's the best path and where I see things going. And I can tell by who's bringing the case, what their positions are. I can give you some guidance on that and where things are going to head. So I do think that I bring some value to the table, even if it's just you hire me for a few hours to help you assess which way you want to go. So that's where I think this gets people to call me sooner. And that was part of the model. It wasn't because I wanted to rope you in and, as Sarah talked earlier, we're not trying to make a ton of money, but it was really frustrating for me throughout this 25 years when people would call me too late. You've already set the facts. I can't do anything at that point. So please call early. If we are going to start charge you, Angela and I will tell you that. We'll explain to you the dynamics and you can make your choice. So that's kind of the thumbnail sketch of the guide and how the partnership, I think, has really worked out well. I think back to you, Sarah.
All right. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Angela. Great job. I think now we're going to pause for a minute and see if there are questions from any of the participants. And I believe that Maria has posted in there in the chat. There's a chat box on the bottom of your screen that you can click on, and you can post questions, and we'll take those as they come in. So John, Maria, I don't know if we have any yet at this point, but we'd be happy to answer any questions people have.
Sarah, we have one. It was mentioned earlier about the process of the kind of the initial phase in working with a producer, kind of an audit to kind of see where they're at, what's going on, and determine what maybe products and services they need. The question was, as a part of that audit, are there certain things or specific items that your group sees as being common mistakes or common things that need to be corrected?
Thanks for that question. Kim, I'm going to ask you to jump in here because as we mentioned, we do these audits together. Actually, Varnum does the audits for us with the employer, and Kim's seen a lot of things over the years. So Kim, please go ahead.
Sure. So what I brought up on the screen is the H-2A labor section and kind of 1 year prior. And so what we see most often is that employers do not have an effective discipline process in place. They have rules, and sometimes not written, sometimes written, but we see that there's often employers have a hesitancy to discipline because they think it's short season, they'll go away. I'm just not going to hire them next year. I'm not going to worry about it. Part of the process for H-2A is you have to invite back all your workers. And so we really want employers to focus on what they want as far as expectations and rules and enforce those. And so that's one of the first things that we kind of look at. There's also, when we go through the management review, we use another document that connects right into this guide where it has links to all of these outlines. So everything's interconnected. So we'll go through your payroll, your I-9s, how you've done those. And sometimes it's just little tweaks. It's things that you just didn't pay attention to the fine detail of things. So I think as Kim Croft said, it's most of the things you're already doing, but we fine tune it a little bit. And as we're walking through that management review, there's a Great Lakes Ag representative there as well. It's also getting you ready to move forward with the H-2A program. What is your contract going to look like? What are the jobs that you think that you're going to want to include within the contract? What things you aren't? Another thing that's often a lot of conversation during a management review is I have these workers that have been here forever. They do all these little other things and it's not really good. I don't want all of that into the contract. How can I just do contract, but how can I still let them pick if they want to pick? And we walk through all of those things. And sometimes it's helping those workers take the next step in being a supervisor. Sometimes it's really realizing that those long-term employees really aren't supervisor material, but just really customized hands-on, trying to help you figure out from an employer perspective what's going to work as you transition into the program.
Yeah, if I could add to that from Great Lakes Ag perspective, just to clarify, the management review is something that we require up front as we begin talking with new clients because it goes back to what I described earlier. Our goal is for you to be successful. And a lot of farms sometimes will go through that process with Kim and her team at Varnum, and they'll realize, you know what, we've got a few things yet that we need to work on or a few things that aren't quite where they need to be. And so we're going to hold off this year and work on that. And so it's really a great tool, kind of a self-evaluation tool to make sure that you have everything in place at your farm that you need to be successful. But it is a requirement for us to do business with you as that management review.
Another question. I'm sorry, go ahead, Kim.
No, go ahead, Jim.
Okay, another question. What kind of support could Great Lakes offer to livestock farmers? Obviously in Indiana, we have a lot of livestock production and that was a question we received.
And I've done the seminar for dairies up in Michigan. So it really is, as Angela pointed out, there's a lot of just employment law within here. There's employee versus independent contractor. I always have employers who want to say, oh, they're not really employees, they're independent contractors. And sometimes they are, but most of the time they're not. So we walk through that, the I-9s. And then really kind of down here, related to health and safety, employment discrimination, all of these topics, even if they're not covered under Migrant Seasonal Agricultural Worker Protection Act, the payroll section applies. So it's really, feels like, because a lot of our FAQs are geared towards the seasonal, a lot of piece rate kind of things, you'll see a lot of those FAQs. There's so much more in it that would help the livestock growers or you could tell the area I came from. I'm a grower, but the livestock production.
And then to follow up on that from a GLAL service standpoint, as Misty indicated about the H-2A program, it is designed for seasonal work, not year round. And so I think a lot of times our employers in the dairy sector or the livestock sector that have a need for labor, if that labor is a year-round job, it's not going to fit in H-2A. Now that said, they are at the federal level working on a new H-2A program rule. And one of the things that farm bureaus across the country have been advocating for is for year-round employment on farms to be eligible. Whether or not that will come out in the new rule, we've been waiting for a year for it. I don't know, but the key thing there is when you look at your employment need and the job, is it a year-round job? And if it is, it's not going to qualify under H-2A.
I would like to add on to that too, Sarah.
Please.
That when you're, since it is not seasonal in nature, as Sarah had mentioned, it doesn't qualify for H-2A, but I will say we do have some clients that do work with dairy, and we have been able to provide support in other areas of their operations. For example, tractor driving, or if they do their own like grains and silage that's tied to the harvest season. So, you know, there is growing and production there. So it's not really tending to the livestock per se, but it is a component of their operation where H-2A might be considered temporary and agricultural in nature. So that's just one of the things you got to look through in terms of your operations and where you can insert the workers that you would need. So for just be thinking about that as well. Just wanted to add that in there.
Another question, ideally, how much lead time should members provide when reaching out for the first time when ag seasonal labor is needed?
So I'm going to ask Misty or Laura to cover that from a labor program coordinator role.
Sure, I can go ahead. I would say as much time as you're able to give us, right? Of course, when you're reaching out and stuff, you are going to have to do the management review, and we would love to have that done, 120 days or more before your start date for the contract. So for example, if you're thinking of having a contract begin in April, you're going to want to be meeting in, December or very early January. And once you complete the management review, and everyone feels comfortable moving forward, that's when we start the drafting process. And with your first year, we don't start from scratch. We do have a lot of information to pull from, a lot of templates to pull from. We have a lot of job tasks already drafted for other clients of ours that we can pull from. But at the end of the day, we have to tailor it to your operations. There's a lot of things that you have to think through, as Kim had mentioned from her grower perspective, that took a lot of time to make sure all of the job tasks that you want to include in your contract are included, because at the end of the day, a worker on the H-2A contract can only perform job tasks that are listed out there. So it takes some time, not so much of the actual putting it together, but just making sure everything's there and the conversations that need to happen. And then, as Laura had mentioned, for the filing process, we want to submit 75 days prior to your start date. So that, between the 100 days and 75 days, that gives plenty of time to have that back and forth conversation, revisions of the contract, and making sure that it's where you want it to be before we submit with the state workforce agency.
Got it. Another question. How will the USDA dropping the labor survey affect the H-2A program and wages in 2021? Then as a follow-up, do you see the program changing much from 2020?
I don't know who wants to take that question, or if Kim or Angela have thoughts on the adverse effect wage rate, but I'll start and then someone else jump in. For those of you that aren't familiar with the wage rate that has to be paid under the H-2A program, you do have to pay what's called the adverse effect wage rate, or the AWER. And the AWER is developed by Department of Labor. They use data from the NASS labor survey that's sent out twice a year that growers are asked to fill out. So traditionally that's been part of the data that they've used to determine the AWER. Well, USDA here a few weeks ago indicated that they weren't going to do the fall labor survey. And so the next question arises, well, where is DOL going to get its data? So part of this, what I described earlier, the changes that are being discussed in Washington, D.C. surrounds the AWER, because as the AWER continues to go up, the cost to do the program becomes prohibitive for a lot of farms. So Farm Bureau has been advocating that we've got to figure out a different way to make the pay that's required to be more reflective of the local area versus the AWER, because it's not reflective of what you have to pay in your local area. So we don't know for sure what this means. We can speculate that potentially there's something coming out in the rule maybe that's going to address the AWER, or that this could have a different impact on Department of Labor, but it certainly will, and that certainly could change things for 2021. Kim or Angela, do you have any thoughts on that?
The only other thing that I would add is there's an election next week. And so that could change everything. We're seeing in other areas of immigration as well, a real focus on increasing wages. So if we remain with the current administration, I don't know that we'll see much relief as far as wage issues are concerned, but it could be a different administration. It could be some different dynamics.
I would also add that we're seeing challenges in court too, litigation, not necessarily regarding H-2A, but definitely with H-1Bs and the wage increases and announcements. So it could either be an election or it could be a court that makes a decision to enjoin some announcement or executive order.
Another question. There was some discussion about, one of the services is identifying and locating potential workers in other countries and, sourcing of employment. The question was how, what process, what relationships does Great Lakes have there, and what kind of a, evaluation or screening or whatever might take place? How does Great Lakes do that?
Misty, if you don't mind, I'd like you to take that question, please.
Yep. So we have a very close relationship with a recruiter in Mexico. They're called CSI Visa Processing, and we worked with them. What we do as labor coordinators, as we're going through your contract, part of the requirements is to distinguish what is your experience requirement, and we'll walk you through that. And how you word that is how we're going to be able to recruit and make sure that the workers that come up on your contract have the experience requirement you're after. So, I mean, there's a lot of nuances to think through, and we're there to guide you through that. I mean, you can say 3 months apple hand harvest, or you could say 3 months or 3 months tree fruit hand harvest, and that's going to either narrow your pool or expand it based off of that wording. So we work closely with the grower to come up with that, and then the recruiters actually have access to the database that Sarah had mentioned, and they can see what the experience requirements are, and then they go through and they find people that meet that requirement, and they also do a reference verification, and we can't, distinguish between, you can't treat one pool of people over the other different. So we do the same thing on the domestic side as well, where we do the interviews and screening. Great Lakes Ag takes care of that for the grower. We have a dedicated person for those job tasks, and they do the interview. They make sure that they have a reference, that they meet and they verify it, and then that they meet the experience requirement. So you get that on both ends of the spectrum for both your foreign labor and the domestic labor. And then just to further reiterate, the close relationship we have with the recruiters is that, you know, we have a dedicated group chat. We have within CSI visa processing, they have given us a direct contact who oversees only Great Lakes Ag recruiting efforts. And so they service a lot of other companies as well, but we have been dedicated a direct contact there. And then the way that they work in Mexico, just to give you a little bit more idea, is that they have kind of satellite offices throughout Mexico. They have, you know, a lead that does principally the headhunting, or those more qualified workers that you're looking for will go out and help make those connections. But it's a lot of communication and a lot of back and forth. And we have a very good relationship with the recruiters there. And not only that, sometimes we bring in the growers too. I know we've had, for the supervisor contracts, for example, we've been able to facilitate the growers being able to be a part of the interview process. So depending on what your needs are, we're able to accommodate most anything.
Okay. Any other questions? I think I was able to get through all of the questions that we received. We've got just a little bit of time left. Absent any more questions, Sarah, I'll maybe turn it back to you and talk just a little bit about next steps.
Okay, I'm not hearing any other questions. So yeah, just to kind of wrap up here, you can see on the screen, we've provided communication and some contact follow-up information for you. You know, you feel free to reach out to John if you've got Indiana specific questions about how's this going to work, or Angela from a legal standpoint down there if you're interested in following up with Great Lakes Ag. Our phone number's on the screen there, our email. We've got a lot of great information on our website that walks through everything from kind of some of the basics that we've covered today from an H-2A standpoint, as well as our services, how to get a hold of us. And then I think Maria posted in the chat for you guys, there's a kind of an H-2A document overview, or H-2A overview document that she shared that does a nice job of just, if you're kind of the type of person that likes to hold something in your hand and have something printed, that is what is H-2A, what are the steps for the process, what are the services that we do, so you can feel free to look at that on your computer or print it off if you'd like. She also shared a link to a new video that we just did. If you're a visual person and you like to watch and listen, there's a great way to learn a little bit more about Great Lakes Ag as well. So feel free, next steps, to just reach out to any of us if you've got questions, and we'd be happy to visit further.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. The final thing, this presentation was recorded. If any of you have the interest in taking another look at it or sharing it with other folks in your network, please feel free to contact me directly, and we could make sure that we get you a copy of today's presentation. So with that, I want to thank all of our presenters. First and foremost, great information. Thank you for your time and this morning and in preparation for today's program. Thank all of you who attended, and we're very hopeful that we'll be able to hear from you and assist you in the future. So again, thank you for joining our program today, and that concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you.